our audience out there, and I hope you enjoy the conference. So, Quentin, we're going to hand over to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ilona. That's very kind. Well, first of all, also let me add my welcome to everyone who's watching and participating in this conference. It's a big topic we've got to deal with today. The future of super yachts, business jets and luxury property is a very big topic and something that's been on my mind a lot. We have a fantastic panel of experts to hopefully engage with. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through their biographies, but I do direct you to the biographies which are on the site for further information. There's Stefano of Vafiadis, yacht designer from Studio Vafiadis.
Hello, good morning.
My apologies if I mispronounced everybody's names because that's probably just me. There's Marcella, who is the principal of Onboard Group. There she is. Silvia Andriotto, who is an associate director of JTC Group. Michaela Chattel, managing partner of Ultimate Collection. And Matteo Atti, EVP, Executive Vice President, I assume that means, of Marketing and Innovation at VistaJet. So with that in mind, the topic of the panel discussion today is it's the future of super yachts, business jets, and luxury property next generation. This is the first panel, and we have a number of topics to get through. And the first topic that I have on the agenda, if you like, which you will have in front of you, I hope, is what the next generation of owners want. What are we looking for? We're entering a whole new era post-COVID, about post-COVID. A lot has changed in the intervening period. So what exactly do owners now want? Has it changed in the last year, or is it the same? What differences do you see? Who would like to contribute or start the oldest discussion rolling? How about, let's just see. Stefano, how about you? Let's give you a crack at the whip.
Hi, good morning to everybody. I think I can give a good contribution to this topic because as a Studio Vafiadis, we had many requests from young owners under the age of 50 years old. And so what they generally want is very easy. They want a practical luxury. So they don't want too many decorations, too many complicated stuff on board of yachts. I precise we are yacht designers, so I'm speaking about boats. And generally they want many contact with water. So beach club is very important, folding platforms, yacht, they're becoming like transformers, more or less, with lots of openings on the sides and sliding glass. Also, the question of glazing is very important because they want to see the atmosphere around. So that's also nice. Something more unpredicted, for example, is that we had many requests from these young owners to host the family on board. So, for example, many times, and in many also of our yachts, we have double master cabins, one for the parents, because of course, even the parents, they're young too, and especially fit, going to the gym, etc., etc. And also very important is the question of the range. So they want yachts that they can travel around the world. Speed is not very important. Range and comfort and smooth ride is the most important thing. Also, something else, security is very important, even cyber security. We had many requests for cabins, staff cabins for security people, because they want to explore the world. And so they go, for example, maybe not in dangerous places, but to go to these places all over the world. Maybe they go through open waters, and many times they are followed by shadow vessels with security on board, security professionals on board.
We're talking about, so it's Stefano, sorry to interrupt you there, but it's
pardon.
Each contribution quite short. Just to briefly pick up on something you mentioned there, are we seeing a younger buyer coming into the market? Is that what you're saying? With more adventurous mindset?
Yeah. I confirm. I confirm this.
Okay, Sylvia, I'm going to pick on you if you're there. Yes, you are. You're responsible for the management of a multi-family office, as I understand it. Is this something that you know? Does that resonate with you? That sort of change of approach, younger owners, more adventurous owners? Is that something you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are living very interesting times because we really see a switch of mindset. When I'm working for the last 5 years in the family office / multi-family office space. And I have to say, when I compare the desires of the old generation, if we can call it like this, to the desires of millennials, of the new wealth. So before, there was much more the need of possession, the need of luxury for showing ownership of some certain assets. It was kind of a symbol of success, right? Whereas now,
what you're saying is very interesting, because I think what you're saying hits on a very important point. I've seen clients who simply don't want to be too far above the radar in this particular moment with pandemic. So the wealth issue, the trophy assets that you're talking about, they're not so important anymore. We're now looking at a move towards more functional assets, something you can use rather than something you can show off in. Is that what you're suggesting?
Absolutely. So millennials, or at least the new generation of wealthy individuals, look for experiences, they look for contribution, and they try to contribute to society in many different ways. I thought to bring to your attention a few examples that I found very interesting and inspiring. For example, we worked in the past, it was a few years ago, very wealthy Swiss artist that decided to build a luxury residence in an undeveloped country, okay? It was a luxury residence in Cambodia, and I'm saying so because these luxury assets wasn't meant for him to own these assets and to show to the entire world how good he was with these assets, but it was to contribute to local communities. In fact, into the resort, what was the resort built for was to educate the local community. So inside the resort, there were schools for the local community, schools for the children, where children could have learned to speak English, could have learned to even just cook, for example, or they could have learned to draw, or they could have learned professions that they could have then used for their future in more developed countries. So my point is, luxury is not longer just owning and possession to show to the world how good we are, but is more contributing to society, to really give whatever possible in order for other countries, other people to live a better life. And they find this a positive shift, and they find this very inspiring. That I brought is just one of the examples, but they have many others.
Maybe that leads into the whole debate, which we might have a little bit later on in this section, about sustainability, which is something else I think is very important. But I'd like to bring in Matteo at the moment, because I think we haven't really heard the jet perspective, because I think they've always been more practical assets, haven't they, Matteo? Maybe yachts are moving in the same direction to a small degree, but how have you seen things changing with jets?
The jet world has changed a lot. Of course, the COVID year has been a moment of looking at the safety of a private jet as less of a luxury and more of a requirement, right? So we have seen an incredible amount of new customers coming to the industry, looking at it in a completely different way. But building on what Sylvia was saying, what we've observed very much is that people are moving away from the pure ownership model, which was about 65% of flights recorded in 2015, 2014. And we are estimating by now that actually ownership will be responsible for about 35% of flights by 2025. So it's a dramatic change. So people are looking to rent more. And I think the reason for that is an underlying requirement for freedom. Jets are seen as a way to move around, escape, but also find things and enjoy things. So building on both what Stefano and Silvia were saying, it's less about what you put inside, but what you do with it. So it's more of a commodity, but it's a higher level of commodity where every minute spent inside a jet, before the jet and after the jet, has to be meaningful. So it's a requirement for freedom, and then making and building meaningful time with the time you have. So it's less about owning, it's more about doing and what you do with it. So Stefano was talking about range. True, same thing for private jets. They want jets that can go farther away. They want speed, not because speed is important in itself, but because they don't want to feel like they're losing time. So speed is a requirement to make sure that every minute is spent in a meaningful way. They want excitement. So it's not for the show-off effect. It's more about the inwarding feel of self-reward of every single moment in the sky, before and after. I think this is mostly what I see as a new defining overarching theme, which is the freedom and the return on the time invested.
Well, I think that's a very good point, and that kind of leads into our next topic on the list, which is how super yachts and other luxury assets will be used in the future. And we're just picking up on that, what you're saying. And Marcella, I don't think we've yet had the pleasure of hearing from Marcella, but I know that she's done some involved in marketing to some extent, haven't you, Marcella? Whether,
yes, exactly. So I agree with what.
I was wondering whether you'd seen a change in the way people want their assets are projected and advertised or used, as well as on the more technical front. So is that something you've noticed, that you're getting more of a different change, a change in the way they want to present themselves through the use of their assets?
Yes, so I think this is a great subject because we've seen the evolution of yacht marketing. So as Stefano says, speed is not important, because before people wanted really fast yachts, and then we saw the marketing of a lot of bikinis and fun and party. It was kind of like a very dominated type of marketing. And then the new marketing, we actually have to hire all the senior people because we have to portray the family. And the branding of the yacht has become so important that nowadays yachts have PR agents working only on the brand of the yacht. You know, what is this yacht to the world? You know, is this an explorer yacht? Is this a, party boat? Is this a family boat or an explorer boat? So the PR around the yacht itself is very important. And there are owners that have an office only for PR for the boat itself, because they want to maintain the image of the boat. They want to represent it in the best quality possible, but they also very selective on who they allow. If the boat is on charter, for example, they have to pre-select who is going on board. I mean, it's a way for them to do networking indirectly as well, but it's also a way for them, it's kind of like an extension of their personal image as well. And then we see a lot more new generation chartering rather than owning, for sure. And the older generation, they want to, I have senior owners that tell me that my grandchildren don't want to come to the boat anymore, And then I hear friends of mine who say, I don't want to go on the yacht because it's always the same story, And then they get bored. They want something more, like Silvia was saying. They want to have a philanthropic effect. I have friends that send their yachts for help in the Caribbean, and the supplies, and they want to make a change. They also do exploration and research. They want to invest in finding the next whale species, and they go and do some underwater marine biology research. So it's all about more than just yachting. They are, like I said, they are not interested in another champagne party in Saint-Tropez or in St. Barth. They are like, been there, done that. That's what my grandparents used to do. You know, they wanted to make an impact and to have more experiences that they don't get anywhere else. And I think this is what yachting provides, an experience that, you know, is so different from any other type of luxury vacation.
Yeah, and I guess that I was wondering to what extent the yards, the builders, people who are building sometimes yachts to spec, they've not necessarily got a client. Are they taking account of these trends sufficiently clearly? I mean, Fedship are certainly doing so, Ocean Co are doing so, some of the other big yards are certainly doing so. I think there is evidence that's happening, but with this new generation of owners coming through, and also with the change of use, because it's a question of spending more time on board because you're now going to be using the yacht for reasons I would suggest of privacy. Privacy and security are very important, always have been. Are the crew going to be able to cope with these owners' demands when they're on board much more often than they are normally, because now they have to be on board more often? Are we making sufficient account, for example, with crew accommodation on board? The crew are no longer able to spend a lot of time on shore because they've been trapped on these yachts. These are a lot of things like this have a potential impact on the design of yachts. Would you agree with that? Anybody here? I can't. How about you, Stefano? Would you say that's true?
Yeah, this is completely true. It's I wouldn't call it an issue, but it's something to take into consideration, because from one side, the owners are tired to have plenty of crew and too many people on board. But on the other hand, yachts are always more complex and also difficult to run in a certain way. And especially with electronics, crew has to be very specialized. We have first engineers, second engineers on board, captain, and so it's PR, as Marcella was saying. But on the other hand, maybe artificial intelligence, for example, it may be the future, solving a little bit this problem. So to make automated mechanism, like also came in the sailing yacht sector in the 90s, when technology pushed the boundaries, and for example, all the big sailing yachts became not independent, but much more or less dependent from crew. So also shadow vessels may be, which are very popular at the moment, they can be useful, for example, to store away things and to maybe also have some berth for the crew and accommodating some crew, staff, security, crew like that. So I think this is a very interesting point on the future of yachts.
From the jet perspective, Quentin, following up on this, what we're seeing in the privacy world is more a change of the definition of the bubble, right? So what before was considered your own inner crew or your team, etc., your own plane was considered to be part of your safety element. With VistaJet, we have planes that you can rent from an entire fleet. So it's not your own plane, but nobody can pinpoint where you are. So the safety and the security is guaranteed by that. And depending on the type of customer we have on board, some people consider the crew to be part of their bubble. So they want the crew to be with them. They bring the nannies, or they ask our hostesses and captains and pilots to be part of their inner group. And others instead want to have a very clear delineation of who's in the cockpit and who's inside the cabin. And that is the same when they get off. We've been asked both to have to arrange door-to-door services. We launched a big jet-to-yacht service in May last year, where we were developing this door-to-door channels from your own home to the arrival on the island. And from the island, we had private landing spaces. We had private rooms where the car would arrive, and the car would take you straight onto the quay. And from the harbor, you would go on the boat without meeting and touching anyone. And then we had other people who said, no, I want everything compartmentalized. Some people asked us for an entire valley in France to be reserved for them so that they could cycle around with in the winery, right? We have arranged for entire villages on the mountains in the US to be rented for a group of people. So depending what you define as your bubble, I think you will look for the right yacht, the right car services, the right destination services, etc. So what is your definition of privacy today? What do you want in and what do you want out? And that, I think, is what is changing the most these days.
Marcella, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think I relate to what Matteo was saying. In the yachting industry, there is a very big difference on how people use their yacht, if it's private or if it's charter. If it's private, they have a more personal relationship with the crew. If it's charter, it's the crew has a different guest on board every week. So the relationship is naturally different. Also, sailboat owners are very different from motor yacht owners. What we see more is that the new generation, they want multiple skills. So it's not only being a stewardess or a deckhand. You have to have, submarine skills. You have to be a personal trainer, massage, yoga teacher. Like they really look for crew that have multiple skills and multiple talent. And then in terms of design, I remember on Ragnar, we had to find a tender that was suitable for really cold environment and really warm environment, because yachts are naturally built to be on warm environments with AC, and now we have to build yachts that have heaters and floor heatings, and the windows and the doors, they all have to be suitable for extreme cold weather. So it's kind of like the way we used to build yachts is completely different. Now you have ski rooms on board. We had a cold sauna. You have different toys that you never had before. So in terms of design, like Stefano was saying, it's completely changing. In terms of yacht building, is super difficult because if the yacht is going to Dubai, you have really big problems in terms of AC. It's very difficult actually to manage the temperature in the desert. And then you have yachts that are also going to extreme cold temperatures. So building a yacht for extreme temperatures is very challenging, and is something new that we're starting to see.
Yeah, and I would say that everything you say makes perfect sense. I would say that as a super yacht lawyer, the biggest things I've seen recently have been crew issues have become prevalent, and I think looking after crew is terribly important. Probably more so, it's been on the agenda since the Maritime Labour Convention made it mandatory to have proper crew contracts rather than the old-fashioned, basically no contract really. And when you talk about new builds, construction contracts, maybe you've seen this, Stefano, but there's been a lot of issues with supply chains and the ability to continue work. All of these things are current problems now. They're feeding into a different way of working in the future, I think. Perhaps going forward, we have to think of the future. How are we going to manage this process going forward? And I can see permanent change, really, in the way things are done. It's that permanent change that really interests me. I'm talking of permanent change. Let's talk about sustainability, because sustainability is a big topic. And it's on our agenda. And I think we should discuss, if we've got time, have a few words on sustainability and how that can be enhanced, what's happening with recycling, disposal, materials, design issues, digital printing of yachts. How about that idea? Why not design and have an entire yacht built by a digital printer? One day that'll probably happen. Who's got some interesting ideas and thoughts on how this is all going to affect the future of the yachts or jets in the future going down the road? I think I can see, I'm going to pick on somebody if nobody wants to immediately answer. I think Michaela's trying to avoid my glance, so I'm going to ask her what she thinks.
Obviously, I'll be speaking from the property side of things. For us, what's really important here, and I think it's almost the first part of sustainability, is match your destination and respect your destination. And obviously, this takes us away quite a bit from yachts and from planes, because they're a lot more mobile and thus adapt in a different kind of way. From a property point of view, it's really important to respect the environment and the destination where you're going into. So that's the first part. You're not going to build a peak hotel if you're in a beautiful ski slope. It just would not fit, and it's not respecting the environments of it. So for us, it's really important to understand where are we constructing, where are we actually developing, and what are the codes, outside the traditions of that placement. But then it's really optimizing everything. It's using solar panels. It's using the energy that we have and optimizing it to a very large degree. It's making sure that, again, we're new developments. It's making sure it's the most recent uses of isolation purposes. So making sure all windows, everything that's openings and closings are the most highly efficient products at the moment. It's using local business. So it's really important from a sustainability point of view, sustaining the actual environment that you're in. So it's using local trees, local cement. If we I'd say if we remove trees, we replant trees. And it's that whole concept of, again, making sure that we're preserving, it's both sustainability and preservation of the environments within. It's also in regards to electricity and lighting, for example. I do understand for big properties, and same with boats, you see it often there. You know, it's censored. Everything is censored nowadays because you don't want to have that massive, I would say, you know, we go up to multiple, I would say up to 4,000 at times square meter areas. These properties should not be lit up all the time because it's just simply a waste. And in the previous generation, they would expect they come into a room and everything is lit up and everything is perfect. Whereas the new generation, we're seeing that they're understanding, and it's a part of their value chain, that the lights are off. Of course, then using a sensor piece is that when they enter or open the doors, everything lights up. But there's not that expectancy of everything has to be lit. Doors will be open even though we have the heating on, or the other way around. We have the AC on, so we open the doors because we also want the fresh air. And this is where it's very interesting with the new generation, is that they're very understanding of it, and they expect from production that all of these elements have been taken into consideration.
It's not that different from yachts. I know property is different, but you're physically located in one place, and you've got to take account of local law and regulations in that one particular country, more importantly than the international aspects of traveling around. But I think the basic principles which we're describing are very similar across the board, because there's been a big move in yachts, for example, to make them much more energy efficient, the green yacht, and to reduce emissions, and that's been, and the various bug conventions have made that mandatory. So I think it's there are changes afoot, probably also with aircraft, I would imagine. But that is driven by who? Is it driven by these new generation of owners? I just don't know necessarily there's a sufficient. We're discussing these new generation of owners, but is it just so absolutely clear what's happening? Because I get the feeling from my own clients and people I speak to, nobody really understands exactly, or there isn't one group of owners actually. There are certain types of owner, and they still fall into two categories. There's the old style of owner who wants to do things the way you were describing, with all the lights, you know. And there's this new emergent owner, and it's this crossover moment which we're at the moment. As we move into the new era, that's becoming the direction of travel. Does anybody want to pick up on that?
Quentin, the reality here is that our task as the leaders of the industry is not to wait for people to ask us, is to guide them into solution. There is an inkling of interest, and we are currently looking at how can we make that desire to feel more sustainable, to be more sustainable, to go on the improvement route, with the fact that we should not expect our customers to hold the knowledge on how to do it. It is in our responsibility to create the environment and the framework so that they can simply say yes to what we know is the best options available today, right? So it's
a very good point. Very good point.
It's what is critical for me is that it is in everyone's interest to have more efficient fuel consumption. That's not a surprise. Everyone spends less in fuel. In private aviation, 90% of the impact is the fuel you burn in the air. Right? So the industry has been working, every manufacturer, for tens of years on how to produce, how to use less fuel. That's not something new, right? Our latest planes, the Global 7500, runs 17 hours and the consumption is 30% less than the next best one, right? It's a ridiculous advantage. While we wait for the engineering miracles of hydrogen cells on planes, electric engines for the short range, etc., to come, which is 5 to 20 years ahead of us, What we need to focus on is exactly what can be done now. So our key actions are, for example, reducing fuel by improving routing. You have no idea how much fuel you spend just circling around an airport. If you have better connection with that airport, you can save 5 to 10% of fuel just because you arrive and you land. Or you can go above a mountain or on the side of a mountain and save another 5% of fuel. So AI is helping us rerouting in the best way possible to reduce consumption. The other big thing is remove waste. The private aviation has an average ferry, which means moving empty planes, of about 45%. 45% of the flights that are going around are empty, because it's not like commercial aviation. You go London to Rome, Rome to London, London to Rome, Rome to London. It's the same flight. There's no lost time, right? A lot of the charter industry is about moving the plane to go where Michela is and then bring her to the next city and then going to pick up Stefano to bring him to another place. So what we're doing is by creating a moving floating fleet, we are optimizing like an Uber system and bringing to you the closest plane we've got. We have a global operation system, so we can absolutely be and only move the plane that is closest to pick you up and reduce that waste incredibly. We work with about 50 to 60% less waste than any other company. These are all things that consumers can choose up front in the business model. If they own their own plane and they leave the plane on the tarmac for 3 days, they are not maximizing utilization. The plane is empty for 3 days. So why did you build it, right? Can we reduce the number of planes that are out there in the world? And the next thing we're looking at is sustainable aviation fuel. It's a fuel that from the beginning to end, from the manufacturing to the usage, can reduce 80% of emissions. The problem is it's not available. It's only available from a handful of places, a handful of airports. So what we're working on is working with the supply so that we can actually increase the users, so that we can increase the distribution of it. And we've been lobbying for that for now 2 years. But what I mean is, again, going back to my first point, I cannot expect a customer to have to know all this. It's too complex. This is something that we, as luxury properties, luxury yachts designer, jet operators, we need to prepare for simple adoption. We cannot expect our customers to be experts on this.
And can I just add to that? Because it's a really also our responsibility as industry leaders for the others. So there's the education part, because like you say, we can't expect our clients to know in advance how they best optimize in regards to sustainability. It's for us to find out, become aware, and then share that information. But it's also for us to learn how to communicate on it so that we educate the others within each sector of the luxury industry. This is our responsibility.
I'll ask you one question, Michela, and it's a general point. Is there a luxury industry? Because we're talking about something which is quite fragmented in some ways, but there is actually, there are, yeah, so yes, Marcella.
I think what is interesting is that, you know, people don't realize how small this industry is. You know, is like yachts of over 50 meters, there's only 666 yachts. So it is super small compared to any other industry. And therefore the research and development needed to implement these technologies, it's huge. And we are working on it. Shipyards are working on it. FedShip is building a hydrogen, and everybody's working on it. But what needs to be understood and clear is that, you know, if you're going to deliver only few products, obviously the cost is going to be higher. And I have these conversations with yacht owners, which they say, look, like now, what is going to cost me to save some money in fuel, it's not going to add up, right? It's like the amount of cost that is costing me to make a more sustainable yacht, I'm never going to make it back on saving fuel. But what is interesting is going back to this branding, right? It's that they don't want to be bashed because, you know, in Germany, there was a big drama about SUV drivers, you know, and then they don't want to be attacked. They are afraid to be, you know, like they were going to be attacked in the media as being pollutants and polluting the oceans and burning fuel. So for them, the image is also important to have a more sustainable yacht. But the industry is heavily investing in research and development. There's a lot of new associations and new people investing in new solutions. But I think in difference than from the aviation, you really don't save a lot of money in terms of spending less fuel.
Yes, I think I agree with that. I can see there's a problem perhaps of marketing or selling these ideas to owners who may not understand what benefits are, and maybe there are no clear benefits from their perspective. But I come back to the point that is there in fact an industry? Because I think what Mattia was saying was that you can't expect owners necessarily to understand everything. They expect us to tell them. But what are they getting a consistent message? And I don't know if they are. I mean, I don't know what perhaps the interests of different sections of the industry are different. Maybe a broker who is selling a yacht wants to sell the yacht, and that's his main interest, and he'll say it's great even if it's not. It's just the necessarily.
Quentin, your message needs to be built in the fabric of your product, not at the sales time. It needs to become part of your overall proposition. It cannot be an add-on of the last minute. It cannot be a sprinkle at the top. You need to have sustainability inbuilt in the design, inbuilt in the management, inbuilt in the sales process, and inbuilt in the add-ons, etc. What we're working on now, and that brings us back also to the previous topic, is we have sent an email, a letter to all of our partners, and we have informed them that all our partners going forward will be required to provide us their sustainability credentials. We are creating a virtuous circle. When we work with Ultima, we want to know that they have something in place. Otherwise, we will not send them our clients. When we work with Stefano and he's creating a new yacht, etc., we will ask him, do you have solutions in place for this? Because this is important for us. If I want to have credibility and trust on showing that it is part of my way to do business, I need to ask people before and after in the value chain to contribute and to have the same mindset. So we can influence each other. And as you were saying, this is about partnership. This is about creating an ecosystem of providers, of individual services to the same client base that all think alike. It's not about adding a little sales message to say, and we save pandas.
Thank you. Thank you, Matteo. That was very
we're all going to jump on board. We're all going to jump on board yachts and then on board planes and fly to yacht conferences in the future. So aren't we just we are part of the problem, aren't we? We aren't part of the solution. I'm just putting that out there as a possibility.
If I can add something, what Matteo was saying, it was very interesting, and I was also called in reference. And in fact, in true, yeah, we designed, for example, we are now designing a hybrid yacht with the Bargate shipyard in Italy. And of course, to design a hybrid boat, it must be chosen the first day of design, because it's much different from a simply endothermic yacht. So you have different technical spaces, batteries in the forward portion of the yacht. So of course, design, it is much involved also in sustainability. And what I have to say from my experience, yachts are a little bit different with the aviation, because I think owners, maybe they share their passion, they're sea lovers, and they share their passion for yachts. So they know a lot about the hybrid system, and we receive also many inputs from them about sustainability. Also for a social matter, because they nowadays owners, they like to expose their yacht as sustainable things, sustainable objects to their friends. So before, the question was, how fast is your yacht going? Now the cool fact, the right question is, how much is efficient your yacht? How many liters per hour? So these are the new trends and the new glamorous points that owners are pointing. So I wanted to say this.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And Sylvia, what are you getting feedback from?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Yeah, no, I thought I just wanted to relate to what Stefano was saying because, and I'm sure Marcella can also enlarge on what I'm saying, because a few months ago, there was an interesting conference here at the Yacht Club of Monaco where we were talking about the C index, right? And Marcella knows it very well. It's basically an index that's used to understand how sustainable is your yacht, how can be improved if it's not sustainable enough. And this concept of sustainability in yachting was not existing until, Marcella can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 5 years ago, right? Yeah, and then I wanted to add just on, because I work in the family office space, on an investment, financial investment point of view. Obviously, sustainability is a big topic. In fact, there are clear directives. If you think about the European Commission and the sustainable finance package, where basically the European Commission imposes to financial institutions to allocate the investment in some certain ways, in order to have a percentage of the portfolio investing in sustainable finance, investing in sustainable projects and sustainable products. So definitely sustainability is of utmost importance, and it's not a coincidence that by default the industry of the yachting, the industry of the private jets are affected. Yeah, this was just a point raised in my mind.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen, well, we work with we use a number of large financing, private financing with banks, both for jets and also for yachts, sometimes both. They can cross-collateralize the assets. I don't see an awful lot of interest in the private sector with sustainability. It doesn't seem to be a top feature of banks who are lending money to owners who've had expensive assets. I wonder whether that might be something that will change if they come under pressure from their regulators to include more sustainability in their lending portfolios, because that would be quite an interesting way of directing the attention of the owner and the banks towards making yachts more, because money talks. And if banks are only lending against assets which are sustainable, then that's going to drive the industry in that direction, I would have thought.
That is already happening, Quentin. It's already, we've already required to provide our risks against financial investments related to climate change, etc. That is becoming part of the standard equity raises requirements. It's already happening. It's not something that will come. We are already perceiving an interest from the funds, because the funds are ring fencing money, and that amount of money will be more and more in the respectful way of ESG going forward. So it's already happening. It's not the future.
It's good to hear, because I haven't seen much of it myself with the transactions that we were involved in. So, but that is obviously a direction of travel which is worth following. One other thing I was going to mention, I think certainly on our agenda here, which is which I think is important, and it really feeds into everything we've discussed today, which is how we will communicate with next generation owners and how will they consume information. Because of course, how they're receiving information. They're receiving information from people like us to an extent when we speak to them, but they have their own ways of doing things, and they don't necessarily want to listen to us all the time, believe it or not. So is there a better way of getting the messages across so we can follow what you're saying, Matteo, which is to make sure that the owners, that we lead the conversation and we actually take people down the right direction, people understand. Sorry, Marcella. You're still muted, Marcella.
Sorry. Yeah, so times are changing, and the way we communicate with people are completely changing. Before, when somebody wanted to buy a yacht, maybe they would go and buy a Boat International magazine. They would not do this anymore. So I always tell my clients that you have to be obsessed with your client. You really need to know everything about them, you know, like what watch do they wear, what car do they drive, but also what do they follow online. And nowadays it's getting easier and easier because of social media. You are able, when you are in a location, you're able to see who is there, and you're able to target them, and then based on their posts and their online behavior, you're even able to understand them to a more psychoanalysis level. So I think that nowadays reaching clients is a lot easier than before, but it's always also changing. So in my opinion, print media is a thing of the past. And but when you look at data, a lot of our yacht owners are people over 60 years old, and therefore if you are going to communicate with them, then you need to apply for one strategy. If you're going to apply, communicate to the next generation, you need to use social media. But digital marketing changed all the time. I mean, I graduated from an MBA in 2014, and everything I learned is already obsolete. You know, it's like you need to keep up with the market all the time, you know, and times are changing, digital marketing are changing. I mean, then you need to find a way on what is it that they're looking, you know. Nowadays, there's a lot of gamers and Bitcoins and billionaires, and, you know, they want fast internet on board a yacht, but also what is it that they are, you know, really interested. So marketing on a game, you know, market the yachts inside a game or inside new apps or inside new social medias, you know. And then I think that we need to adapt. We need to target our message. We need to see how do they consume. I mean, nowadays the attention span is only 8 seconds. So you have 8 seconds to catch the attention of your potential client. But you need to see how does he consume this information, you know. You need to really invest in big data. So big data is kind of like the trend. You need to invest in big data into really understanding your consumers and then finding marketing strategies to target them specifically.
This is completely right. If I can add something, I would like to underline what Marcella was saying, and adding even more, because I think the old channels of communications are completely dead. Now going around in shipyards here in Italy and in Northern Europe, I hear that they are actually selling yachts because the market is very active at the moment, so there was no depression. They're actually selling yachts on Zoom. So, I mean, this is one of the biggest changes in yacht marketing, I think, since the beginning. And so even the boat shows are under doubts, because shipbuilders, they're saying we are selling yachts even without boat shows. So even that it can be a big change in the game. I think boat shows, they are very important and they will continue to play a bigger role. But I mean, the market is continuing even with the pandemic situation. So social media.
I think, Stefano, I think you're right. I think they will continue, but I think there are changes, of course, in a number of boat shows in the way they're going to operate. That's what I've seen. Even Monaco, for example, they're going to have a different approach. I think we're going back to more of a business orientated, more of a functional approach. They aren't just these great big bloated parties. Well, they will be, but not quite so big. So maybe that's more of a business orientated way of doing things. And the people who I think have really suffered the most, and maybe people who will have to change the way they do business the most, have been the brokers, because they've not been able to show people around yachts. They've had to do things over Zoom. There are some software packages now which are available, which enable you to, they've been going for some time, but they're getting better and better, to improve virtual tours around yachts at various stages of construction or to use yachts. So all these things are available. So somebody on the west coast of the States can view a yacht in Europe and doesn't have to leave the comfort and security and the safety of their own country and their own home. That's a big change. It's going to change, affect us all, I think. Maybe that's also the case with you. You're nodding them. I think is that the case also with property? I guess that's not very much the case.
Yes, so that's something that we've seen with the pandemic, which has been super interesting, is that huge shift from mainly, I would say majority, moving from B2B to B2C. Our clients have used the last 12 months researching themselves. They're being, of course, targeted a lot more aggressively via social media. And we've seen such a growth in our B2C numbers. And these are, you know, private companies that are hundreds of thousands a week. And we would normally never have this sort of client base through a direct communication. And it's WhatsApp, it's Instagram, and you reach out, you know, all the basic ways that they are. And also the younger generation. We also have a much, I would say, a higher degree of a millennial client base right now, because they're informed and they look at the information that is a huge shift. Before, there was a tendency of reaching out, whether it was to a broker, whether it was to an agent, the PA, and say, I would like to go to XYZ destination, show me options. Now they're actually looking for it themselves. And they know that us as service providers, we're happy to go that extra mile to make sure that preference sheets are filled out, to make sure that everything is already pre-anticipated and taken care of. Unfortunately, we're cutting out a little bit the middleman at this point. And I think that's something that the pandemic has really brought to the surface. Agents, operators, brokers, I think it will be a big job for them to get their, I would say, their position back strong after the pandemic.
So I'll
observed, Quentin, connecting to what Michelle was saying, is we are going into a cookie-less world, right? So the traditional digital tools that we've been using until yesterday have been taken away from a matter of prospecting based on web behaviors and analytics. So what we're going to rely a lot more on is going back to those era of personal introductions. If you think about the property market or the yacht market, and you look at the website, they're often pretty similar. They're all saying we go above and beyond. We have the latest technology. We have the most beautiful pictures on. Our marketing strategy tends to be a big cookie copy-paste, right? We all hire incredible photographer to make every one of our products look stunning. So where is the truth? To find that level of truth, I might go to Quentin because I know that he has been to an Ultima property or he has been on this certain yacht. So the word of mouth component to us at present is becoming the second biggest thing. So the first one is direct access and transparency. So going less marketing fluff and more fact-based, because people want to find what you're about, and you need to be able to explain it clearly without words that are too complicated or overreaching. I just want to know what happens when I'm there. And the second thing is, I want to know if somebody has been there and can vouch for it, somebody I can trust. So those to me are the two most critical pieces, transparency and trust.
And that's always been the case. I have to say what you're saying is extremely true, because there are high net worth people who are buying these assets, jets or yachts or properties. They don't know who to trust, so they tend to trust their friends, who they also know very well. And they rely upon word of mouth introductions. That's why there's often a lot of the marketing that we do, which is important, and we get traction with, isn't as important as word of mouth. It never will be, because word of mouth, trust, will be built up over time. That's my personal view, anyway. And Sarah.
Yeah, I agree with what Michela was saying, because in the middleman, because in yachting, nowadays we see a shift of people, like there's new sites, so there is going to be less yacht brokers, for example, because people will try to go direct, and then, you know, there are the websites that, you know, cut the charter broker. But I think it's the same like in right? It's like if I'm going to book a flight from Nice to Amsterdam or London, I do it myself. They can book a yacht. If it's a simple yacht, they can book it themselves online as well. But if I'm going to go to a safari in Africa, I'm going to contact a yacht agent that specializes in African safaris, because I want an amazing experience and I know it myself and I don't have to do proper research. So in this case, when you bring this extra added value, you're going to have a charter broker or an agent or a person in between. But nowadays with social media, if you're interested in a yacht, you go on social media and then you see how the yacht is being only how it's presented in pretty pictures, like Matteo, by the shipyard or by the brand, but also by the users themselves. So you're able to see how it actually really looks. You can actually tell, you can communicate. In yachting, because the industry is so small, the best marketing is, of course, word of mouth and referrals, but people are getting it from social media. There's kids that say, "Oh, actually, I have a funny story." And,
I think you're cracking up. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Lorna, are we kind of running out of time? Or
we are. We've got about 2 minutes left, Quentin. I know there are a couple of questions in the Q&A box which may or may not already have been covered, if you can see those, but we've literally got 2 minutes where you might just want to summarize and incorporate some of the points that you can see.
I'm just having a look. I can see a couple of chaps here, people I know pretty well. Richard Philippe is one of them, and says, I hope the panel agrees that going forward, and what we have learned in the last 12 months, yacht shows, Monaco, etc., should focus less on window shopping, day trippers, and more on attracting true punters and industry specialists. That's exactly what we've been saying in a sense. I agree with Rich. We should be doing that because they have become too bloated. And I think what we're all saying really, as a result of the recent changes and the way things are working, focus shows the way forward, where professionals need to be there, are there, others aren't. Less window shopping, I guess. So that's Richard's case. Paul Cave had a point, didn't he? Any real developments are likely to come from those areas, which are, yes, yeah, that's pretty much been answered, I think. All right, well, look, I'm going to try and, I'm sorry if we haven't been able to answer every question, but I think we've covered quite a lot of ground. I think, is there a wrap here? The wrap is that there are new owners. We're going to have to communicate differently. We're going to have to, there are great similarities between the different sections of the luxury asset market, yachts, jets, and real property. The way we market, we communicate with owners, sustainability is important. We've covered a lot of ground. I think we've all got a pretty good handle on what's being said. I very much thank you all for having participated in this panel, and I certainly hope the audience have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. It's been very informative. And I'll hand back to you then, Lorna.
Thank you very much, Quentin, and thank you to all of our panel as well. That was a really great discussion to